Rain lashed against the gray stone walls of the Naval Academy, the kind of cold, cutting rain that seemed to punish anyone who dared to stand beneath it. Emily Carter stood there, drenched to the bone, her uniform clinging to her like a second skin. Her hair was plastered to her forehead, her lips trembling not only from the cold but from the humiliation that burned hotter than any storm could cool. Around her, the tall academy gates loomed like iron bars, shutting her out. Inside, she could hear the laughter, the cruel, echoing laughter of the cadets who had locked her outside. It had started as a joke, or at least that's what they told themselves. "Lighten up, rookie," they'd said earlier that evening. But it wasn't funny. It never was. Emily had joined the academy to honor her father, a decorated Navy SEAL who had died during a rescue mission overseas. She had come to prove she was strong enough to stand where he once stood. But her presence had become an unspoken challenge to some of the cadets, men who didn't believe she belonged there, who thought her determination was arrogance and her quiet strength was defiance. When they cornered her outside the dorm, she thought it would end with a few cruel words. Instead, they took her keycard, shut the door, and walked away laughing, leaving her outside in the cold November rain. She could have called campus security. She could have begged, but that wasn't who she was. Emily had been raised by a man who told her that honor didn't come from fighting back, it came from standing tall, even when the world tried to cut you down. So she stood there, arms folded, rain running down her face, her breath coming in sharp clouds. Inside, one of the windows lit up. The cadets, silhouettes moved around, laughing, throwing shadows that danced mockingly across the glass. Emily turned her gaze away and stared toward the distant bay, where the storm clouds hung low over the water. Somewhere out there, she knew, were the men her father had served with, the men who had once called her Little Carter when she ran through the SEAL compound as a child. She hadn't spoken to them in years. But tonight, something in her heart stirred. Not vengeance, not pride, just an ache for someone to remember her father's promise, that no one was ever truly alone if they wore the Navy's colors with honor. The rain grew heavier. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, scrolling through the old contacts she had never deleted. Then she saw it, Chief Daniels. Her father's teammate, his brother in arms. She hesitated for a long moment before pressing the call button. When the voice answered, deep and steady as a storm-tamed ocean, she almost forgot how to speak. "Chief, it's Emily, Carter's daughter." There was silence for a heartbeat, then a slow, surprised inhale. "Little Carter, what's wrong?" Her voice broke. "Nothing, sir. Just needed to hear someone who knew him." He must have heard the tremor in her words, the pain she was trying to hide. "Where are you?" he asked. She hesitated. "The academy." And that was all it took. The next morning, the sun rose over the academy yard, shining on puddles that mirrored the crimson flags fluttering in the wind. The air was crisp, the kind that made cadets stand straighter during roll call. But there was something different about the air that day, something quiet, charged, like the calm before a storm. Emily had barely slept. She'd cleaned herself up, dried her uniform, and decided she would face whatever came next with dignity. If they wanted to break her, they would have to do more than mock her. She had seen what real strength looked like. Men pulling wounded brothers out of burning helicopters, men who joked through the pain because laughter was easier than fear. She stepped into the mess hall. Conversations stopped. The same cadets who had locked her out the night before looked up from their trays. A few smirked. One of them, a tall second-year named Travis Holt, leaned back in his chair with an amused smile. "Hey, rookie," he said. "You dry off okay." The words hit her like a slap, but before she could respond, the heavy doors at the far end of the hall opened with a metallic groan. Every head turned. 6 men walked in. They weren't in uniform, but they didn't need to be. Everything about them, the way they carried themselves, the steady precision in their steps, the quiet confidence, spoke of a lifetime of discipline and danger. They were older, hardened, faces carved by sun and battle. But their eyes, calm, alert, alive, commanded the room like generals. Chief Daniels stood at the front. "Morning, cadets," he said, his voice even but cutting through the hall like a blade. "We're here to talk about Brotherhood." The commandant, who had followed them in, nodded silently. He had been briefed early that morning after the SEALs arrived unannounced. He didn't stop them. "Some lessons," he knew, were better taught by those who lived them. Daniel's eyes scanned the room until they found Emily. A flicker of recognition, then pride. He gave her a small nod. This young woman's father was one of us, Daniels began. He wore the trident with honor. He saved lives. He gave everything he had for the men beside him. And when he died, we promised to watch over his family. All of them. The room was silent now. Even the clinking of forks stopped. Daniels stepped forward. A SEAL team isn't just about muscle or rank. It's about trust. It's about knowing that when you're out there, freezing in the dark, someone's got your back. That's the Brotherhood. He paused, eyes narrowing. And last night, some of you forgot what that means. Travis looked down, his jaw clenched. Daniels motioned to his men. One of them, a broad-shouldered SEAL with a quiet intensity, stepped forward. You think locking someone out in the rain makes you strong, he said. Try hauling your teammate through a mile of mud while he's bleeding out. That's strength. Try standing guard for 12 hours on 2 hours of sleep. That's strength. What you did last night wasn't strength. It was weakness wearing a uniform. Emily stood frozen, tears burning behind her eyes. Not from pity, not from pain, but from the overwhelming sight of her father's brothers standing for her when she hadn't asked them to. Daniels looked back at her, then to the cadets. Carter believed that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what's right despite it. His daughter's here living that truth. You'd better start living it too. He turned to leave, but stopped by Emily's side. He put a hand on her shoulder, firm and proud. Your dad would be damn proud of you, kid. She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. Thank you, Chief. As the SEALs left the hall, silence hung heavy. The cadets shifted awkwardly, some looking ashamed, others thoughtful. Travis finally stood and walked toward her. For the first time, there was no mockery in his eyes. Carter, he said quietly, I went too far. We all did. That was wrong. Emily met his gaze. Just don't let it happen to anyone else. He nodded. It won't. In the days that followed, something changed at the academy. No one spoke about the incident, but everyone felt its echo. Emily noticed small gestures, someone holding a door for her, another cadet offering a hand during drills. The laughter that once targeted her became laughter shared. The isolation faded, replaced by the slow, steady rhythm of respect earned the hard way. Weeks later, during a field exercise, Emily found herself in command of a small team, including Travis. The storm rolled in again, rain pounding the earth, thunder grumbling like the voice of an old god. The terrain turned to mud, visibility dropped, and the team had to rely on instinct. At one point, Travis slipped down a ridge, twisting his ankle. Without hesitation, Emily went after him, hauling him up, supporting his weight as they pushed through the downpour. When they finally reached base, soaked and exhausted, he looked at her and managed a weak grin. You sound just like your old man, he said. Never leave anyone behind. She smiled softly. That's the rule. That night, as she lay in her bunk, the rain tapping softly against the window, Emily thought of her father. She could almost hear his voice, proud and steady. You kept your head high, kiddo. That's all I ever wanted. Months later, at the Academy's annual ceremony, Emily stood in formation as the commandant announced a new tradition, a special award in honor of Chief Carter, recognizing cadets who exemplified integrity and courage under pressure. Her name was the first to be called. As she stepped forward to receive the medal, she caught sight of a small group in the crowd, Chief Daniels and his team, standing quietly at the back. They didn't need to say anything. Their presence was enough. After the ceremony, she walked over to them, the medal gleaming in her hand. Daniels smiled. Looks good on you, Lieutenant. She laughed softly. I'm not a lieutenant yet. You will be, he said. And when that day comes, remember, strength isn't about how loud you can shout. It's about how quietly you can lead. She nodded, her throat tight. Thank you for coming. Your dad sent us, Daniels said with a wink. She laughed, tears filling her eyes. He would have loved that. The SEALs turned to leave, their silhouettes fading against the sunlight. Emily stood there, medal in hand, the ocean breeze carrying the faint scent of salt and steel. She realized then that brotherhood wasn't just something born on the battlefield. It was something carried in the heart, passed down from one soul to another, through kindness, through courage, through the unspoken bond between those who chose to serve something greater than themselves. The rain would fall again someday, she knew. The world would test her strength again. But now she had more than memories to stand on. She had the legacy of her father, the faith of his brothers, and the unbreakable truth that compassion, not cruelty, is what defines a warrior. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, she could almost see her father smiling, proud of the woman who had faced the storm and found her own light within it. Because when the world turned its back on her, she didn't fall. She called in the Brotherhood. And the Navy SEALs answered.